say winning ain't everything. Well, we don't have them type conversations over here, man. Had that conversation with the losers. We trying to win at everything we do. Even in the loss, we don't see defeat. We see a lesson learned. Straight up. Look, I came into this world in 1978. The doc looked me in my face and knew I was something great. 45, 42 Prescott, that's where I'm from. Grew up in the slums around dope dealers and bums. As humble as I was, I adapted to my habitat. In my own lane, though, far from where they crashing at. Dumb bar graduate, the game I'd have mastered it. Served in the Navy, look, y'all don't know the half of it. Pops passed in 01, moms passed last year. I know they up in heaven smiling down, crying mad tears, cause they son making it. No telling where I'm taking it. My city been cursed, but I feel that I'm breaking it. Coached at Wayne High in 15 in one state. Seen the fork in the road and went straight. I know what I'm worth. I'm OG King Kirk. Brooklyn Nets gaming crew legend. Let's work.
Hello, this is OG King Kirk, your host of the OG 2 Cents podcast. Thanks to who all tune in each and every Sunday night. I appreciate it very much. Also, a special thanks to Dave at the 2K Zone, Strider Visuals, and Box Graphics who share in my vision with the OG 2 Cents podcast. Make sure you're doing your part in preventing the spread of the coronavirus. Do the 5. Hands, wash them often. Elbow, cough into it. Face, don't touch it. Space, keep safe distance. And feel, if you're sick, stay at home. Also, at this time, normally in the introduction with my team is Bauer DZN, but I have decided to replace him with another graphic artist who has been with me for a while. He's basically the creator of the OG King Kirk brand as far as the logo and everything involved. His name is Ben Robinson. He's from Nottingham, United Kingdom. He started his creative journey in 2011 producing, branding in the gaming community for Call of Duty. From that point, he developed his skills and creativity daily, producing artwork and interacting with individuals and teams who would later down the line become friends and clients. As years went by, he further improved and developed his skills, learned new techniques, styles, and gained a lot of inspiration from other designers he met along the way, as well as constantly improving on all the projects he produced. In 2017, we met. I brought him into the 2K community. From that point, he worked on developing his logo skills and gradually got more involved in the 2K community, working with teams from all over. Words that he's mentioned to me was, I appreciate all the projects I get with you guys, and I love to design. Also, I appreciate everything Kurt has done for me. Love, my brother. Now, that's getting into tonight's episode. It's what's real. And stuff like that is real. Basically, we're breaking this topic down, this episode down into 3 parts. From information that I pulled up as I was studying for this episode is, realizing what's real and what's not, who's worth the effort and who's not. Be who you are and say what you feel. It's not being rude, it's being real. What's real and what's true aren't necessarily the same. And one of my favorite OG 2 cents is being cordial isn't being fake. When we come back, we're going to handle those topics. And as usual, I'm going to give my 2 cents on it and we'll go from there. Be back in a minute.
They say winning ain't everything. Well, we don't have them type conversations over here, man. Had that conversation with the losers. We trying to win at everything we do. Even in the loss, we don't see defeat. We see a lesson learned.
Hey, this is OG King Kirk, and I'm back. And this episode, number 9, is What's Real. And basically, I'm just going to be discussing some topics on realism and what I feel is important. And when someone's saying, I'm keeping it real or keep it real, I honestly believe it's times where you have to be open and honest about different things. But then there's other times where you have to be selective in how you deliver what's real while you're being honest. Basically, just broken down into 3 different parts. Realize what's real and what's not, what's worth the effort and who's not. Be who you are and say what you feel. And the last part of it is what's real and what's true aren't necessarily the same. Basically, with the realizing what's real and what's not, and who's worth the effort and who's not is, it's like when you meet somebody. So let's say when a man meets a woman, or you can be putting in all the effort in trying to get this woman, and you're the one calling, you're the one texting, you're the one trying to get her to go out with you and different things like that. And if she's receptive, then you can kind of put some work into that through your efforts. Obviously, if they're not really giving you any feedback or not being receptive to anything that you're putting out there, then it's probably not worth it. And that's speaking more like to relationships and different things like that. You can also put it into situations where a lot of people try to go into business together with somebody, and you're doing all the work, and that person is not really holding up their end of the bargain. It's not really worth it. Why go into business with somebody or be a partner with somebody when you're carrying the majority of the weight? So that's pretty much, some examples of just realizing what, who's worth the effort and who's not. The other part about realizing what's real and what's not is, it takes time. It takes, I think, adverse situations really bring out the real in people, and how they respond to it basically tells you and lets you know what you need to see. It's a bunch of statements that you can throw out there, like when people are doing well and people are being successful, a lot of people want to be around, a lot of people want to be seen, but then let the tables turn and you'll see, you'll really try to, it'll really come to light people's purpose and how real they were and how real they weren't. And I think, like I said, adverse situations are pretty much always let you, see that side of people. The other part is be who you are and say what you feel. It's not being rude. It's being real. I think it can be misleading with that. My mom used to say is, Ivan, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think that goes into like knowing who you're speaking to and understanding them and just the way you need to communicate with that person. They'll pretty much, let you know that, yeah, you can be real and you can say what you want. But at the same time, if you know who you're dealing with and, they might be sensitive or they might be an emotional type person or something like that, then they're pretty much, it's walking a thin line. You don't have to, I don't believe you have to yell and cuss and fuss to get your point across. Most of the time, it's going to come down to whether people really want to listen to what you have to say, or either they don't. And at that point, if it's like that, then some things can be better off left unsaid. But I think the tone and the body language of how you portray your message is important. I've never told anybody how to speak to me or, how they should talk or anything like that. I just know that professionally, it's a lot of things I don't say. It's a lot of words I don't use. It's a lot of emotions that I don't display because I don't feel like it's necessary, and I'm just only speaking for myself. But I'm pretty much still at the same time, I think it's levels. When you talk about being real, it's certain things that when you decide to join an organization or a company, or you employment or anything like that, you're basically agreeing to everything that's required to have that position. And in doing so, that doesn't mean like you have to take any and everything that comes your way, because you're protected too as well. But you didn't get hired, or you didn't sign a contract to just do and say whatever you want. So I think at that point, it's like, that's where you have to realize that you have a responsibility to carry out whatever the duty is. And just, I think it all comes down to respect at the end of the day. I mean, if you can be straightforward and honest with me and throw some respect on it, I think it's all good. And the same with me. I think I've always had witty ways of using words and getting my point across. And I think, just like anything, I think it's a skill, but sometimes things just boil down to who you are as a person. Most of what we're talking about goes down to the golden rule: is just do unto others as you want them to do unto you. And if you can do that, then I think it's always room for people to be real with one another, whether that's in word or whether that's in action. It's like speak your mind, but like I said, just put some respect on it and say what you feel. And like, I speak with a low, calm, soothing voice. It's times where I do get animated or anything like that, but it just depends on the situation. I mean, if it's warranted or needed, then yes. But it's like when I coached, I was very intense, very fiery coach, and this I wanted the max out of my players, because the one thing that I felt, if you are in a position to lead and mentor and shape the youth of America and the world, it's just you owe them that. Like you owe them to push them and to get everything out of them, and it's important. Like I used to be very direct, firm. Probably used some I used some choice words here and there, and I was tough. But the one thing that I liked at the end of the day, when I coached players and they moved on, and they would come back and they would have conversations with me. Obviously, at that point, once they graduated high school, they would come back and talk to me as a young adult. And one of the things they used to always say was like, "Man, Coach Ivan, you always kept it real with me. Like, you would always say the thing that some people, probably wanted to say but didn't." And even with that, it's no knock to them. Maybe it's just that wasn't who they were as a person. And that's fine. Like, I don't think there's no one standard way to get your point across. and being real with somebody and not being rude about it. Everybody responds to things differently. There's some people who like to be pushed. They have to be pushed. Like, you can't ease up on them, or they'll just procrastinate and slack and different things like that, and they'll never get anything done. So some people you have to push the gas a little bit. It's the same, just like my daughter. Like, I love her to death, but like I used to tell her she must have just loved for me to cuss her out and say things to her, because I would tell her to do things and I would be cool about it, but it never resonated with her when I was being nice dad. Like, I would tell her to make sure she calls me when she going somewhere, or text me just so I know she got there safe. And I don't care. I even as a grown woman now, I still tell her, to kind of always let somebody know where she at and where she going and different things like that. It's not to monitor, but I care about my kids, and then there's a lot of things going on. But if I say it like in a nice way, she'll be like, oh, Papa's, I forgot. But then, like, once I snap on her after the fact, then it doesn't keep happening. And I think that was just always the running joke with me and her, is that if I wasn't yelling or fussing at her, then she didn't function straight. It's just like knowing the individual and how you need to portray your message and getting it across. And sometimes being able, having to switch up your message or say and do things that you typically wouldn't do, it's not making you less real. It's just doing what you have to do to get the point across. The other part about it is what's real and what's true aren't necessarily the same. You can think that you're being real about something and you're being honest. And just because you feel like you're being real and honest, that doesn't make it the truth. It doesn't make it right. And it's always going to boil down, to me, it's always going to come back to respect. Everything is going to be 10 times out of 10 when it comes down to communication. It's just about respecting each other, respecting each other's mind, respecting each other just as an overall person. Because most of the time when you think about somebody yelling and fussing at somebody, it's like you looking down on that other person like they're a kid or a child if they happen to be an adult. Now, obviously, if you're an adult and you're talking to a child, I mean, even then, it doesn't always have to be. You don't have to yell and fuss and demean to be real with them. And basically, like I said, and this whole facet is just like, just because your perception of being real doesn't make you right. It doesn't make it the truth. And I think that's something that's important. I think that you have to value the persons that you're talking to, and learn to listen back too. And how they, take into whatever the message is that you're putting out. It's definitely important to, any type of exchange. It's always the big thing about it. It's talked about so much now, whether being fake and so and so not being real, and then one of the biggest things that get left out a lot of all this conversation back and forth about what's real and what's fake and all of this is that people grow. Your mindset changes. What you once thought was was everything is no longer anything. And then some things that you thought was nothing is everything. And most of the time that, when you look at somebody and I guess it could be somebody that's viewed upon as it's like, man, that's a real person, man. Like he real or she real, and if you haven't seen or talked to that person in years, you don't know how they think now. You don't know how they look at things now. Experiences and everything, they mold and shape you. If you're not constantly in conversations with an individual, you won't know that. It's just like people being on the come up. Like the last time you seen somebody, maybe they didn't have a car, or maybe they didn't have anywhere to stay, and they probably didn't. Maybe they didn't have a job neither. But then you see them 6 months to a year later, and now they have a job. Now they have somewhere to stay, and now they have a car. A car. It's like where you met them at when they were at their low point, their mindset and mentality was probably different. And now that they've worked and got to the point where they have a job and they have a car and they have somewhere to stay, their confidence is a little up. And now they may not view and see things the same way as they once did when they didn't. And at the same time, that's not going to make them fake or not real, because they've elevated themselves to, move on and get away from where they were at. Too often we judge how people go about things, and instead of getting to some type of understanding. I think that understanding is key in knowing how someone thinks, how they speak, and how they act. That almost defines to me what makes a person real or not. When we talk about the first thing of how they think, because most of the time how you think is typically what's going to come out of your mouth and in your actions. And once you witness that out of people, then you can get a true feel of, how you look at them, whether or not they're being real or whether they're being fake. And I think that's something that you have to take time in order to get to that point with anybody. Now, if not, then you won't ever get there, and you'll just be assuming and just thinking, like I said, like, what's real and what's true aren't necessarily the same. Like, all of us have our own thoughts about what we think is real and what we think is true. Man, sometimes the actual bare truth lies somewhere in the middle of all of that, and we'll never get to it if we don't respect each other enough to listen while somebody else is talking, and then in return that person listens to the other person while they're talking. And like I said, we're listening for understanding. Like, we're not just listening to reply and just to have a rebuttal or a comeback. Shout out my own OG 2 cents about, what's real. Because a lot of people who've known me throughout the community or have came across me, it's like, man, like, Kurt, you ever get pissed off, or you always cool, you always happy, like there was anything ever bother you? And I'm like, yeah, like things bother me a lot, but I try not to let things bother me to the point where I'm treating people or acting in a way that I shouldn't. That's the whole point of I've seen a lot of people make statements like they'll go back and forth with one another on social media or over the game or anything like that, and then people saying you wouldn't do that if he was in my face, or when I see you, like, it ain't gonna be none of that or anything like that. And the thing about that is just understanding the situations. Like, of course, in the heat of competition or the heat of anything, words are going to be exchanged, emotions are going to be high, and a lot of people are going, I wouldn't even say it would be about regrets. It's just understanding situations. Like, I mean, if you've ever played any type of sports or anything like that, you know that a lot of things are going to happen that's not always there's going to be real emotions and everything, but that's not always going to be the truest meaning behind everything. Like, teammates go at it. I honestly believe that it's, there's in a winning culture, it's not always going to be peaches and cream. Like, people have to be real with each other, and it's also got to be understood what type of place is the emotions and the words are coming from when you are talking and being open and expressing yourself to one another. It's like when I had did an OG 2 cents on this whole topic, it was about being cordial isn't being fake. And for some people that might go over their head. I've noticed as I've gotten older that people think that you got to be blunt about everything just to get your point across. And to me, I'm not buying into that. I truly don't think I have to blow a gasket on everything to be real. I think I can be cordial and still show you a certain level of respect and expect that in return for us to move on about our day or just to move on in general. I don't understand why is that such a difficult thing to grasp. Like, you can be nice to somebody, you can be respectful to somebody, and I guess in reference to you, I mean, you can be kind of nicey when you talking to somebody without using a bunch of choice words or a bunch of raw emotion to let somebody know how you truly feel. And I'm gonna stand by that. I take pride in not letting people take me too much out of character. And then I also know on social media is that a lot of things can be taken way out of context because it's just words on the screen. It's no emotion in that pending. And then also, like they say, text is the easiest way to communicate misunderstandings. I think about that every time I hit send or every time I hit tweet or anything when I'm conversing with somebody over social media is because I think for me, I've had a history of, like, anytime and somebody would have an issue or with anything that I've said over social media or maybe something I've done, I've always I just topped it off by saying enjoy your day, brother, or sister, or whatever. Like, I never really entertained negative energy in conversations. When I was younger, I handled things a lot differently, but I think the true testament of where you're at as a person is what you went through, and have you grown from it, and who you were then, are you still that same person now? So for me, it's like through my experiences, I handled things a lot differently. I was not this calm or this laid back when I was in my early 20s as I am in my early 40s. Like, I think that's why at some point, if you consider yourself an OG, or if you got people that look up to you, that listen to you or whatever, like, it's on you to show them something different. And ironically, that's the point where it's on you to be real with them. Like you have to be the example and show them that it's another way to get your point across. With that being said, it's like I said, it's just when people like I said, what's real? Like real is just basically to me is just finding a respectful way to get your point across via words or your actions towards another person. And I think that's something that can be done if out of respect and understanding. That's truly what it comes down to. It's like you have to look across at that person in front of you, and it all starts with respect. And at the end of the day, you're speaking your thoughts to another person. They should be listening to you, and they should be able to speak their thoughts, and you listen to them. And somewhere in between there, you find understanding amongst the two of you, or three of you, or however many it is in the room, or wherever you're at. And I think that's when things are at its purest and realest moments. And I think that's how you get things done. As long as, people are worried about somebody being fake or not keeping it a buck or not keeping it 100 or not keeping it a bean or however you want to put it. But it all starts with you just being respectful to someone and they're being, respectful back to you. And I think at the end of the day, as long as respect and understanding is involved, it's a lot of room to be real and be cordial about it. So that pretty much concludes this episode of OG 2 Cents. It's just just my thoughts on what's real and how to go about that, and understanding the differences amongst people and situations. So I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in. I do understand that OG 2 Cents is never a personal attack to anybody. It's my personal thoughts and experiences in life or those around me. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at OG King Kurt. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Also, we now have the OG 2 Cents podcast on all social media platforms as well. On Instagram, it's the OG 2 Cents podcast. On Twitter, it's OG 2 Cents podcast. And on Facebook, it's the OG 2 Cents podcast. So please make sure you follow all of those pages. Do know that the OG 2 Cents podcast is on all streaming platforms, which is Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Also, it's on Tumblr and LinkedIn. Something new now, I do have my own website, which is www.ogkingkurt.com. Appreciate if you check it out. It's a lot of nice things on there. Definitely, it's everything OG King Kurt and the OG 2 Cents podcast. You'll be able to find this. It'll be pretty much a one-stop shop where you can find everything. Also, once again, shout out to my team, Dave at the 2K Zone, Strider Visuals, and like I said, Newly Box Graphics. You can follow them all on Twitter. Dave is at Dave, DAVE _2K Zone. Strider Visuals is at STRDERVISUALS. And Box Graphics is at BOXGRAPHICS. Make sure you follow them, and also they do a lot of great things. I'm never one to stop them from their hustle. I mean, I know they're part of my team, but I still look out for them and trying to, get their name and exposure and whatever else they have to offer to anybody else besides myself. Next week's episode is number 10. It's Be Love in 2K with Derek Famous Enough Franklin. He's a GM and coach for Heat Check Gaming. It'll be definitely a good episode, something you don't want to miss. It's going to be something that's completely out of the norm of our 2K element. So I very highly suggest you tune in for that. Also, check out the 2K Zone on Podbean at the 2kzone.podbean.com. I almost forgot about that, but Dave does a lot of great things in the community with his show. He involves other members in the community as well. So definitely check him out as well. But remember, next week's episode 10, Love in 2K with Famous Enough. Definitely going to have a great time. Also remember, if it makes sense, it's an OG 2 cents. OG out.
Straight up. Look, I came into this world in 1978. The doc looked me in my face and knew I was something great. 45, 42 Prescott, that's where I'm from. Grew up in the slums around dope dealers and bums. As humble as I was, I adapted to my habitat. In my own lane, though, far from where they crashing at. Dumb bar graduate, the game, I'd have mastered it. Served in the Navy, look, y'all don't know the half of it. Pops passed in 01, moms passed last year. I know they up in heaven smiling down, crying mad tears, cause they son making it. No telling where I'm taking it. My city been cursed, but I feel that I'm breaking it. Coached at Wayne High in 15 in one state. Seen the fork in the road and went straight. I know what I'm worth, I'm OG King Kirk. Brooklyn Nets gaming crew legend, let's work. Yeah. Hey, much love to the whole MPBA league. Special shout out to the Brooklyn Nets gaming crew, we on our way, baby. What's up, JP? LT, Big West, Famous Enough, 2K Comp Games, Black Frank White, Brooklyn Nick, Rico. Let's put this work in, fellas. And much, much, much love to the entire 2K community for always showing me love. Without y'all, we wouldn't be here. Yeah.